Have you ever felt that crawling sensation on the back of your neck when you're alone? That primal instinct screaming that something is watching you, waiting for you to lower your guard? Our ancestors learned to fear the dark, to dread what lurks just beyond our vision. But what if the real terror isn't what we can't see, but what happens when we can't keep looking? In the shadowy halls of the SCP Foundation, there exists an entity that turns this fundamental human vulnerability, the simple need to blink, into a death sentence. Meet SCP-173, also known as the Sculpture, the first and perhaps most infamous entity contained by the SCP Foundation. Classified as a Euclid-class object, this seemingly ordinary concrete statue stands as a testament to humanity's deepest fears. The terror of what happens when we close our eyes, even for a split second. But don't let its mundane construction fool you. Made of concrete and rebar, with traces of Krylon spray paint decorating its surface, SCP-173 might look like a rejected art school project, but it's anything but harmless. Don't get too comfortable. This thing is anything but predictable. SCP-173 is kept in a locked container at all times. Access to its containment unit, that's a 3-person job minimum. 2 people keep their eyes on it while the third does what needs to be done. Why, you ask? Because SCP-173 only moves when it's not being observed. That's right. Blink, and it's closer. Look away, and it's already at your throat. If you're lucky, it'll strangle you. If not, well, let's just say the base of your skull wasn't meant to bend that way. The Foundation has strict rules for handling this anomaly. Personnel are trained to communicate their every blink. Blinking! Blinking now! You get the picture. A single misstep, and the cleanup team gets another unpleasant job added to their schedule. Speaking of unpleasant, the containment chamber itself has a reddish-brown substance smeared across the floor. Tests confirm it's a mix of blood and feces. The origin, unknown. But given SCP-173's temperament, you probably don't want to dwell on it. Now, if this isn't nightmare fuel yet, imagine the poor D-class personnel, the expendable grunts of the SCP Foundation, tasked with cleaning that mess every 2 weeks. Picture the conversation. Hey Carl, how's work today? Oh, scrubbing death goo off the floor while trying not to blink. Standard Tuesday. But hey, gallows humor is all some people have when working with entities that defy physics, logic, and every natural law we cling to for sanity. SCP-173's origin remains a mystery. Who or what created it? Why does it exist? The Foundation has no answers, and honestly, the questions are scarier than the silence. What kind of entity turns rebar and concrete into a predator? SCP-173 isn't just a statue. It's a question mark, a horrifying exception to everything we think we know about reality. And then there's the sound. Personnel report hearing the grinding scrape of stone on stone when no one's in the room with it. It's a normal behavior for SCP-173, the files say. Normal. Because apparently, when you deal with creatures that shatter the laws of physics, you start redefining what normal even means. Despite its horrors, the Foundation does its job. Containment breaches are rare thanks to rigorous protocols, but when they happen, they're catastrophic. The last time SCP-173 got out, it didn't just kill the unlucky staff nearby, it almost compromised other high-risk anomalies. Imagine trying to recapture something that doesn't stop moving unless you're looking at it. It's a logistical nightmare, and for the people involved, probably the last nightmare they ever had. But the Foundation never stops trying. That's their mantra: secure, contain, protect. They don't do it for glory. They do it because someone has to. SCP-173 forces you to reconsider how you see the world, literally. It weaponizes observation, turning the simple act of looking into a matter of life and death. It's a predator that thrives on your instinct to trust that objects don't move on their own. It teaches you in the cruelest way that nothing is ever truly still. Now imagine living in a world where SCP-173 isn't just a file in a classified database. Imagine stumbling across it in the dark, hearing that faint scrape before realizing too late that it's not alone in the room with you. That's where we're going next. It begins with a group of unsuspecting people, normal folks like you and me, who find themselves face to face with the unthinkable. They didn't sign up for this, but neither did Ben, Aaron, or Lily. And as you'll see, no amount of training, preparation, or sheer willpower can truly prepare you for SCP-173. Let's begin. The rain-slicked streets gleamed under the weak glow of streetlights as Aaron pulled the van into the parking lot of the old Halcyon building. The air smelled faintly of mildew, carried by a light breeze that seemed to whisper through the cracked windows of the looming structure. The building, once a bustling office hub, now stood abandoned, its tenants long gone after a string of unexplained accidents. Yet, the city's utilities department had insisted the electrical issues needed fixing, and Aaron was the guy they called when no one else wanted the job. "Why does it always have to be the creepy places?" Lily muttered, hugging her jacket as she stepped out of the van. "Because creepy pays extra," Aaron said, slamming the driver's door shut. He pulled a flashlight from his tool belt and glanced at their rookie, Ben, who was lingering near the van, staring up at the building's cracked facade. "You coming, Ben?" Aaron asked. "Yeah, just I don't know. This place gives me the creeps," Ben said, shivering despite the mild night air. "Good instincts," Lily said, shooting him a wry smile. "But creepy doesn't kill. Faulty wiring does. Let's move." The team trudged toward the entrance. A faded, condemned sign hung crookedly across the rusted doors. Aaron used a crowbar to pry one open, revealing a dark, cavernous lobby. Their flashlights swept across overturned desks, shattered glass, and graffiti-covered walls. A reddish-brown stain marred the cracked tile floor. "What is that, blood?" Ben asked, pointing at the stain. Aaron knelt to inspect it. "Looks old. Could be paint, or rust." He rose quickly, trying not to think too hard about it. "Let's not overanalyze. We've got a job to do." The plan was simple. Check the electrical systems in the basement, find the source of the outages, and leave. The Halcyon building had been an easy out for years, thanks to its notoriety and the rumors surrounding it. People swore they'd seen shadows moving in the windows or heard noises, scraping, like stone grinding against stone, when no one was around. Aaron didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in paychecks. "All right, we'll split up once we're downstairs," he said as they reached the stairwell. "Lily, you handle the circuit breakers. Ben, check the backup generator. I'll handle the wiring by the junction box." "Why do I always get the generators?" Ben asked, his voice tinged with nervousness. "Because I don't trust you with the breakers," Aaron said with a smirk. "Come on, rookie. It's not rocket science." They descended into the basement, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. The light from their flashlights seemed to dim, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The faint sound of dripping water echoed through the concrete corridors. "This place is a health inspector's fever dream," Lily said, her voice breaking the uneasy silence. Aaron nodded. "Let's finish quick. I've got a date with a six-pack tonight." The team reached a large maintenance room at the end of the corridor. The room was cluttered with old equipment and tools, but what caught Aaron's attention was the figure in the corner. "Someone left a statue down here," Lily said, her flashlight trained on it. It was roughly humanoid, about 6 feet tall, with a crude, almost childlike face painted on its surface. Its body was made of rough concrete, streaked with traces of rebar and spray paint. The thing was hunched slightly forward, as if frozen mid-stride. "Looks like some artist got bored," Aaron said, inspecting it. "Or it's a prank. The graffiti matches." Ben approached cautiously, his flashlight shaking. "It's creepy. Why would anyone leave this down here?" Aaron shrugged. "Not our problem. Let's focus. Lily, breakers are that way. Ben, generators over there, let's get it done. The team split up. But Aaron couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time he turned, the statue seemed just slightly different, though he convinced himself it was his imagination. The shadows played tricks in the flickering light, and the faint smell of something metallic iron maybe seemed to grow stronger. Hey, you guys hearing anything? Ben's voice crackled over the walkie-talkie, breaking the silence. Just you whining, Aaron replied, trying to keep the mood light. Keep your eyes on the generator. I mean it, Ben insisted. Like scraping stone on stone, you don't hear that? Aaron paused, listening. The faint sound was there, just on the edge of perception. He shook his head and keyed the radio. It's probably an old pipe. Focus on the job. But as he worked, the sound grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't a pipe. It was deliberate, rhythmic, like something dragging itself across the floor. He glanced over his shoulder and froze. The statue was gone. Lily, Ben, he said into the radio, his voice tight. Where's the statue? What statue? Lily asked. The one in the corner. It's not there anymore. Silence. Then Ben's voice, barely above a whisper. It's here. With me. Aaron's blood ran cold. Don't blink. Don't look away, he said instinctively, though he didn't know why. The walkie crackled again. But there was no response. Just static. Then a sound wet and sharp, like a branch snapping underfoot, echoed through the basement. Aaron ran toward the generator room, heart pounding. The lights flickered violently, casting long, shifting shadows across the walls. When he reached the room, Ben was lying on the floor, his head twisted at an impossible angle, and in the corner the statue stood, watching. Aaron's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the statue. It was exactly as he remembered. Rough concrete, rebar sticking out like jagged bones, and a grotesque face daubed with smeared paint. The only difference was that now, it was unmistakably closer. Ben. His voice cracked as he crouched beside the rookie's lifeless body. Aaron fought the rising bile in his throat at the sight of Ben's twisted neck. The scene was absurd. Ben was fit, taller than Aaron, and there was no way this thing could have overpowered him. It hadn't even moved. Had it? Aaron, what's going on? Lily's voice buzzed over the walkie. He pressed the button, his hand trembling. Ben's dead. The statue, it moved. A pause. Then Lily's shaky reply. Don't screw with me. What do you mean it moved? Aaron looked back at the statue. It hadn't changed position. The grotesque face stared ahead, cold and inert. But he felt it, an almost suffocating sense of presence. As if the thing were alive, waiting, watching. I mean, it's alive, Aaron said, struggling to keep his voice steady. It's not just a damn statue. Stay where you are. No way, Lily shot back. I'm coming to you. Just keep an eye on it, okay? Don't, Aaron barked, but the line was already silent. He cursed under his breath, his focus returning to the statue. He couldn't leave Ben here, but he couldn't risk turning his back on this thing either. All right, you bastard, Aaron muttered, stepping back toward the door. You stay right there. Lily was jogging through the dim corridor, her flashlight beam jittering as she fought to steady her nerves. She didn't believe in ghosts, but she believed in Aaron's instincts. If he said something was off, she wasn't about to dismiss it. The breaker room had been uneventful, just a series of switches that needed resetting, but she hadn't been able to shake the feeling of being watched. Now, hearing Aaron's voice crackling with fear, that unease bloomed into full-blown terror. As she approached the generator room, she slowed. The first thing she saw was the statue, standing rigid in the corner. Then her flashlight caught Ben's body. Oh God, she whispered, clapping a hand over her mouth. Lily! Aaron's sharp whisper startled her. He was crouched near the door, his flashlight trained on the statue. His eyes were wide, his face pale. Don't look away from it. Don't blink. What the hell is going on? Lily demanded, her voice shaking as she stared at the statue. I don't know, Aaron said. It killed him, snapped his neck. I swear it moved, but only when I wasn't looking. That's insane. Does it look like I'm joking? Lily hesitated, glancing at the statue again. It hadn't moved, but its crude features seemed somehow more menacing under the harsh beam of her flashlight. Okay, she said, trying to steady her breathing. What do we do? Aaron looked over his shoulder toward the hallway. We get the hell out of here, slowly. One of us keeps an eye on it at all times. And then what? Call the cops? What do we even say? Lily's voice was rising in panic. Focus, Aaron snapped. We're not dying down here. You keep looking at it and I'll... The lights flickered. For a split second, the room plunged into darkness. When the light returned, the statue had moved closer, its grotesque face now tilted slightly toward Lily. She screamed, stumbling backward. Aaron grabbed her arm, steadying her. Don't blink, he yelled. I'm not, she sobbed, her eyes wide and unblinking as tears streamed down her face. What is this thing? I don't know, Aaron said, his voice tight. But we're not sticking around to find out. They began inching toward the door, Aaron keeping his flashlight trained on the statue. Lily's gaze never wavered, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Every step felt like an eternity. The sound of their shoes on the concrete floor echoed unnervingly, mingling with the faint scraping noise that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. They reached the hallway. Aaron gestured for Lily to go first, her flashlight now locked on the statue as he took over watching it. They moved slowly, trading positions, never letting the thing out of their sight. Halfway to the stairwell, the sound of boots echoed from above. Who's there? Aaron called, his voice hoarse. A group of men in hazmat suits appeared at the top of the stairs, their faces obscured by dark visors. They moved with precision, carrying containment equipment Aaron didn't recognize. One of them held up a hand, signaling them to stop. Step away from the entity, a voice commanded through a crackling speaker. Are you serious? Aaron shouted. It'll kill us if we look away. We're aware of its properties, the man said calmly. Follow our instructions and you'll survive. Two of the suited men moved into the hallway, their movements measured. They carried what looked like a large steel cage, reinforced with thick glass panels. The rest of the team aimed strange-looking devices at the statue, their focus unshakable. What is that thing? Lily asked, her voice trembling. Classified, the man replied. Now move aside, slowly. Aaron and Lily obeyed, shuffling backward until they were pressed against the wall. The suited team worked in eerie silence, encircling the statue with the cage. The scraping noise grew louder as the statue shifted, its crude face seeming to twist with rage as it was enclosed. Containment secured, one of the men announced. Aaron and Lily exchanged a glance. Relief washed over them, but it was fleeting. The sight of Ben's body, the memory of the statue's unnatural movement, and the cold efficiency of the men in hazmat suits left an indelible mark. You'll be coming with us, the leader said, his tone leaving no room for argument. What? Aaron asked. Why? For debriefing and to ensure there are no lingering effects. Aaron's stomach dropped. Something about the way the man said lingering chilled him more than the statue ever could. The van's engine hummed as Aaron and Lily sat in tense silence. The hazmat team's van led the way, its taillights casting an eerie red glow on the rain-slicked highway. Neither of them had spoken since they'd been ushered into the unmarked vehicle, their tools and personal belongings confiscated in the rush. I can't believe this is real, Lily muttered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the tires on wet pavement. She stared out the window, her hands clenched in her lap. Aaron didn't respond immediately. His mind was stuck in the basement, replaying the sound of Ben's neck snapping, the horrifying movement of the statue. SCP-173. That's what one of the hazmat-suited men had called it during a hurried conversation over a crackling radio. The name stuck with him. Sterile yet ominous. What do you think they're going to do with us? Lily asked, turning to him. Aaron sighed. I don't know, but they're not cops, that's for sure. Yeah, no kidding, Lily said, her voice sharpening. They showed up like they were ready for this, like they knew exactly what that thing was. Before Aaron could respond, the van slowed and turned into a large industrial complex surrounded by a chain-link fence. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, their silhouettes lit by harsh floodlights. A sign by the gate read, Site 19, in stark black letters. Great, Lily muttered. Nothing says safe and welcoming like a top-secret military base. The van stopped, and the back doors opened. A man in a lab coat, flanked by 2 guards, motioned for them to step out. This way, the man said curtly, leading them into the building. The room they were taken to was cold and sterile, with metal walls and a single table. Aaron and Lily sat on one side, while the man in the lab coat sat opposite them, flipping through a thick dossier. My name is Dr. Calloway, he said, adjusting his glasses. I'll be handling your debriefing. Debriefing? Aaron asked. Is that what you call it when you kidnap people? Dr. Calloway didn't rise to the bait. You were exposed to SCP-173. We need to ensure there are no lasting effects. What kind of effects? Lily demanded. You keep saying that, but no one's explaining anything. Calloway leaned forward, his expression grim. SCP-173 is a Euclid-class entity. That means it's both dangerous and unpredictable. While its primary method of attack is physical, there have been anomalous after-effects reported by survivors. Like what? Aaron pressed. Paranoia, hallucinations, sleep disturbances. In rare cases, individuals have claimed to see SCP-173 in their peripheral vision, even after it's been contained. Lily's face paled. So what? We're cursed now? Calloway shook his head. Not cursed. Affected. That's why we're conducting this interview. Interview? Aaron repeated. Feels more like an interrogation. Calloway ignored the comment, pulling out a clipboard. Let's start with the events in the basement. When did you first encounter SCP-173? Aaron recounted the story as best as he could, though the memory felt fragmented, like pieces of a nightmare he couldn't fully remember. Lily chimed in occasionally, her voice steady despite the fear that lingered in her eyes. And the entity's behavior? Calloway asked. Did it display any deviations from its documented patterns? It moved when we weren't looking, Aaron said, but it felt like more than that. Like it was watching us, waiting. Calloway scribbled a note. Anything else? Sounds, smells? That scraping noise, Lily said quickly. Like stone on stone, and there was this smell. Metallic, like blood. Calloway nodded, his expression unreadable. And Ben? What happened to him? Aaron's jaw tightened. We blinked. The lights flickered and it got him. Calloway set the clipboard down and folded his hands on the table. I'm sorry for your loss, but your cooperation is vital to our efforts. SCP-173 is a highly dangerous anomaly, and understanding its interactions is critical. Aaron leaned back, crossing his arms. You seem to understand it well enough. Your guys showed up pretty damn fast, like you knew this would happen. For the first time, Calloway hesitated. The Foundation monitors anomalous activity worldwide. We respond as quickly as possible to contain threats. Contain, Lily repeated bitterly. You make it sound so clean, like it didn't just kill our friend. Calloway stood, gathering his papers. You'll be escorted to temporary quarters for observation. Standard protocol. What happens after that? Aaron asked, narrowing his eyes. Calloway didn't answer directly. You'll be debriefed further in the morning. For now, get some rest. Their quarters were small windowless rooms with a single cot and a metal door that locked from the outside. Aaron paced the floor, his mind racing. Rest was impossible. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the faint hum of the ventilation system. Aaron was on the verge of dozing off when a sharp, rhythmic sound echoed through the room. Scurry! Scurry! His eyes snapped open, heart pounding. He turned toward the source of the noise, the corner of the room. Empty, But the sound persisted, now closer, louder. Scurry! Aaron blinked, and for a split second he swore he saw something. A shadow. A figure. It was gone just as quickly, but the oppressive sense of being watched remained. In the room next door, Lily screamed. Aaron bolted upright and pounded on the metal door of his cell. "Lily! Lily, are you okay?" he shouted, his voice echoing in the cold, sterile room. Her screams had stopped abruptly, replaced by the muffled thud of footsteps and the distant hum of alarms. He pressed his ear to the door, catching snippets of frantic voices from the hallway. "Containment breach subject sighted, repeat, containment breach." The words sent a shiver down Aaron's spine. He backed away from the door as it suddenly unlocked with a loud hiss. 2 guards in black tactical gear burst in, rifles trained on him. "Hands up!" one of them barked. "Wait, what's happening? Where's Lily?" Aaron asked, raising his hands. "No time for questions. Move!" the guard ordered, motioning for Aaron to step into the hallway. The red glow of emergency lights bathed the corridors, and a faint familiar sound reached his ears. Skrrr! Aaron's stomach churned. He turned to the guard. "It's here, isn't it?" The man didn't answer, but his grip on the rifle tightened. "Keep moving." Aaron followed them down the corridor, glancing over his shoulder at every step. The oppressive sense of being watched clung to him, growing heavier with each passing moment. They passed other Foundation personnel, scientists, and guards rushing in coordinated chaos, their faces pale beneath the flickering lights. "Where's Lily?" Aaron demanded again as they reached a T-junction. The guard leading him paused, listening to his earpiece. He turned to the other. "She's in Block C. Get him to the safe zone while we handle containment." Aaron's heart sank. "I'm not leaving her. Take me to her." "Not an option," the guard snapped. Before Aaron could argue, a piercing scream cut through the air. It wasn't Lily. It was guttural, desperate, and cut short by a sickening crunch. The scraping sound followed immediately, louder now, closer. The guards froze, their eyes darting to the shadows at the end of the hallway. One of them lifted his rifle, his voice low and tight. "Eyes on it. Don't look away." Aaron turned, his stomach dropping as he saw it. SCP-173, standing motionless at the far end of the corridor. Its grotesque painted face seemed more twisted, its crude body splattered with fresh streaks of red. He realized with a sickening lurch that it wasn't paint. "Don't blink," one of the guards whispered. "We back away, slow." They began to retreat, their movements careful and deliberate. Aaron's pulse pounded in his ears as he kept his eyes locked on the thing. Every fiber of his being screamed to run, but he didn't dare. He'd seen what happened when you turned away. The scraping grew louder, though the statue didn't move. It was like the sound came from the air itself, vibrating through the walls, the floor, his very bones. "Safe room's just ahead," the guard muttered, motioning to a steel door 20 feet away. "We get him in, we regroup." "What about her?" Aaron demanded, still backing away. "What about Lily?" "She's not my priority," the guard said coldly. Aaron's jaw clenched, but before he could argue, the lights flickered. For a brief second, darkness consumed the hallway. In that instant, SCP-173 moved. When the lights returned, it was just a few feet away, hunched forward as if poised to strike. Its blank eyes seemed to bore into Aaron, its crude smile now a sinister leer. "Move! Move!" the lead guard shouted, breaking into a run. Aaron followed, his breath ragged as the guards fired rounds of some kind of glowing ammunition toward the entity. The bullet struck its surface, ricocheting harmlessly as if it were invincible. They reached the safe room, the guard shoving Aaron inside before sealing the door. A small observation window gave them a view of the corridor beyond. SCP-173 stood just outside, motionless again, but now it seemed to tilt its head slightly, as if mocking them. "We can't hold it here forever," one guard said, his voice trembling. The other grabbed a radio. "Block C containment breached. requesting immediate backup. Aaron turned to them, his fists clenched. "We have to go back for Lily." The first guard rounded on him. "You don't get it, do you? That thing isn't human. It doesn't care about your friend. If she's alive, she's already lucky." "She's not just some casualty," Aaron shouted. "You don't leave people behind." The guards ignored him, focused on the radio chatter. Aaron paced the small room, his mind racing. He couldn't just sit here while Lily was out there with that thing. He had to do something. Then he noticed the air vent in the corner. It was narrow, but large enough for him to squeeze through. The guards were distracted, their backs turned as they monitored the corridor. Aaron made his decision. He dropped to the floor and began unscrewing the vent cover. The sound caught the guards' attention and one turned, swearing. "What the hell are you doing?" "Saving my friend," Aaron said, yanking the cover free. Before the guard could stop him, he crawled into the vent, dragging the cover back into place behind him. The space was tight, the air stale and suffocating, but he pushed forward. His flashlight illuminated the narrow metal walls, and every scrape of his movement echoed like gunshots. "Scurry!" He froze. That wasn't him. The sound was coming from ahead. Aaron's breathing was shallow, the air in the vent too thin and too cold. His flashlight beam quivered as he strained to pinpoint the source of the scraping noise. It was faint but deliberate, a chilling counterpoint to his every move. Skrrr! He froze, heart thundering in his chest. It was closer now. The vent walls seemed to close in around him, the darkness beyond his flashlight oppressive and absolute. He whispered to himself, "It's just the metal. Just the vent." But he didn't believe it. Not for a second. A metallic clang echoed from somewhere ahead, jolting him back to motion. Crawling as quickly and as quietly as he could, Aaron pressed forward, hoping, praying that Lily was still alive. Lily clutched the edge of the workbench in the small maintenance room where she'd taken refuge. Her chest heaved, her lungs burning from her sprint through the labyrinthine corridors. She had no idea where she was, only that SCP-173 wasn't here. Not yet. She wiped sweat from her face with trembling hands, her flashlight casting frantic arcs across the room. The shelves were lined with tools, wires, and containers of chemicals whose labels she couldn't read in her panicked state. Her mind raced with fragments of conversation, things the guards and that doctor had said. SCP-173, Euclid class, dangerous. The sound of footsteps outside the door made her stiffen. She killed the flashlight, plunging the room into darkness. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding in her ears. The footsteps stopped, replaced by a low, dragging noise. Skrrr. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. The door handle rattled, slowly, methodically. Her breath caught as the handle turned. The door creaked open, revealing the faint outline of something standing just beyond. In the gloom, she could make out the hunched silhouette, the crude angles of its body. It was there. "Keep looking," she muttered to herself, her eyes wide and unblinking. She edged along the wall, inching toward the workbench. Her hand brushed against a heavy wrench. Without breaking eye contact, she grabbed it, the cold steel comforting in her grip. The thing didn't move. It just stood there, staring at her. She couldn't tell if it was waiting or simply playing with her. Her vision blurred as her eyes burned from the effort of not blinking. A faint sound echoed from the vent above, a shuffle of movement. For a moment, the figure's attention seemed to shift, its head tilting ever so slightly upward. Lily took her chance. She hurled the wrench with all her strength. It struck the figure with a dull clang and ricocheted into the darkness. The thing didn't react, but the split-second distraction gave her enough time to bolt for the door. Aaron emerged from the vent into a dimly lit corridor, his shoulders aching from the confined space. The scraping sound was gone, but his nerves were frayed, and every shadow seemed alive with potential danger. "Lily?" he whispered, his voice echoing faintly. He gripped his flashlight tightly, scanning the hallway for any sign of her. A faint noise reached him. Footsteps. He followed them, breaking into a run as they grew louder. The sound led him to a large storage room, the door ajar. He pushed inside, his flashlight revealing shelves of industrial equipment and supplies. "Lily," he called out. "Aaron?" Her voice came from behind a stack of crates. Relief washed over him as she emerged, disheveled but alive. She threw herself into his arms, trembling. "Oh God, Aaron, it's here. It was here." "I know," he said, holding her tightly. "We've got to move. The guards are trying to contain it, but they're not going to wait for us." She pulled back, her face pale. "I don't think they can contain it." Before Aaron could respond, the lights flickered. They both froze. In the brief moments of darkness, the scraping noise returned, louder than ever. Skrrr. They turned toward the door, and there it was. SCP-173 stood in the doorway, its grotesque form illuminated by the erratic light. Its crude, painted face seemed to leer at them, the rebar in its body glinting like exposed bone. "Keep your eyes on it," Aaron said, his voice shaking. "We move together." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face as she backed away with him. They kept their eyes locked on the statue, inching toward the opposite end of the room. The scraping noise grew louder, though the thing remained still, its menacing presence filling the space. "Where's the exit?" Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. Aaron glanced toward a side door, his flashlight beam catching the sign above it. "Emergency exit." Relief surged through him. "There," he said. "We just have to—" The lights flickered again. Darkness enveloped them for a heartbeat, and when the light returned, SCP-173 was closer, its jagged hands raised as if poised to strike. "Go!" Aaron shouted, shoving Lily toward the exit. He turned back, his flashlight trembling as he kept his eyes locked on the thing. "I've got it! Just run!" Lily hesitated, but Aaron's frantic gesture spurred her into motion. She darted through the exit, the door slamming shut behind her. Aaron backed away slowly, his legs trembling. He blinked once, then again, each time expecting the thing to close the distance. It didn't. Then, without warning, the lights went out completely. The scraping sound was deafening now, surrounding him, closing in. When the emergency lights flickered back on, SCP-173 was gone. The emergency exit slammed behind Lily as she stumbled into the cold night air, gasping for breath. Rain poured down, masking her tears as she turned back to the building. Her flashlight had been lost in the scramble, and the dim glow of the emergency lights flickered faintly through the cracked windows. "Aaron!" she screamed, her voice hoarse. She waited, her heart pounding, but there was no response. Just the relentless drumming of rain and the distant hum of the Foundation's containment vehicles. Suddenly, a deafening bang came from inside the building. Lily jumped, her fists clenching at her sides. "Come on, Aaron," she muttered under her breath, willing him to appear. "Please." A figure emerged from the doorway, drenched and staggering. Relief and fear warred within her as she recognized Aaron's silhouette. He limped toward her, his face pale and streaked with grime. "Aaron!" she cried, running to him. She threw her arms around him, ignoring the rain that soaked them both. "What happened? Are you okay?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes were wide and unfocused, his breathing shallow. Finally, he managed, "It's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" Lily pulled back, searching his face. "Did they contain it?" Aaron shook his head, his jaw tight. "No, it just disappeared." Lily's stomach dropped. She wanted to press him for details, but the distant roar of an engine cut through the rain. They turned to see a black van speeding toward them, its headlights piercing the gloom. The van screeched to a halt, and a team of hazmat-suited operatives spilled out, their weapons drawn. A man in a black trench coat and dark glasses stepped forward, his expression cold. "You two," he barked. "Step away from the building." Aaron hesitated, but Lily grabbed his arm. "Let's just go," she whispered, pulling him toward the operatives. "You were in direct contact with SCP-173, the man continued, his tone clipped. "Protocol requires immediate medical evaluation and debriefing." "Medical evaluation?" Aaron snapped, his anger bubbling to the surface. "Your protocol didn't save Ben. It didn't stop that thing from killing him or almost killing us." The man didn't flinch. "Containment isn't perfect, but your survival means we have data we can use to improve." "Data?" Lily said, her voice rising. "We're not lab rats." "Enough," the man said, his voice hard. "Get in the van now." Aaron opened his mouth to argue, but the look in the man's eyes stopped him. He exchanged a glance with Lily, then climbed into the van. She followed, the door slamming shut behind them. The medical wing of Site-19 was stark and cold, its fluorescent lights casting a sterile glow over every surface. Aaron and Lily sat side by side on examination tables, their arms bandaged where blood had been drawn. Monitors beeped faintly in the background, their rhythmic sound a thin thread of normalcy in the chaos. Dr. Calloway entered the room, clipboard in hand. His usual calm demeanor was strained, his brow furrowed as he flipped through pages of notes. "You're both physically fine," he said, not looking up. "No injuries apart from minor abrasions, but there are concerns." "Concerns?" Aaron asked, narrowing his eyes. "Like what?" Calloway hesitated. "Both of you have elevated cortisol levels, which is expected after such an event. But there's something else, residual anomalous activity. It's faint, but it's there." "What does that mean?" Lily asked, her voice shaking. "It means SCP-173 may have left a psychological imprint," Calloway said carefully. "Some survivors report hallucinations, an overwhelming sense of being watched. It usually fades, but not always." Aaron's stomach sank. "You're saying we might see that thing again?" "I'm saying it's possible," Calloway said, "but unlikely. The Foundation is monitoring you closely. If there are any signs of prolonged effects, we'll intervene." "Intervene?" Lily said, her voice sharp. "Like what? Lock us up? Erase our memories?" Calloway's silence was answer enough. "Unbelievable," Aaron muttered, running a hand through his hair. "You people are so obsessed with controlling this stuff. You don't care what happens to the rest of us." "That's not true," Calloway said quietly. "If we didn't care, you wouldn't be alive." Lily snorted, but she didn't argue. The weight of the day hung over both of them, too heavy to shake off. Calloway closed his clipboard and sighed. "You'll be released soon," he said. "But I have to warn you, if SCP-173 reappears, or if you experience anything unusual, report it immediately. Understood?" Aaron nodded reluctantly. Lily didn't respond. They left Site-19 hours later, the sun rising behind them as the Foundation's van dropped them off near a bus station. Neither spoke as they waited for their ride home, exhaustion and unease hanging between them like a storm cloud. When the bus arrived, they sat together in silence, staring out at the passing landscape. Aaron couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally long. He glanced at Lily. She was pale, her eyes darting nervously to every corner of the bus. They didn't feel safe, not anymore. As the bus rolled on, Aaron caught a glimpse of a statue in a park they passed. For a moment, his chest tightened, and he fought the urge to scream. But it was just a statue, immobile, harmless, wasn't it? Aaron sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the blinds drawn and the room unnervingly quiet. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound, a faint background noise that failed to mask the tension in his mind. He had barely slept since leaving Site-19 a week ago. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt the weight of a presence in the room, a silent watcher that disappeared the moment he opened them. His phone buzzed on the table, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a message from Lily. "Lily, Are you okay? Been seeing things again? Shadows? Maybe it's just my head messing with me. Call me? Aaron stared at the screen, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He hadn't seen her since the day the Foundation dropped them off. Not that he didn't want to. He just didn't know what to say. What could he say? That he felt the same? That she wasn't alone? That none of it would ever feel normal again? Instead, he typed back a lie. Aaron, I'm fine. Just tired. You'll be okay. It's probably nothing. As soon as he sent the message, he regretted it. It wasn't nothing. He knew it. He felt it. Later that night, Aaron was lying on his couch, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. The TV murmured faintly in the background, a nature documentary he wasn't paying attention to. Rain tapped against the window, a rhythmic sound that once would have calmed him, but now felt oppressive. He closed his eyes, willing himself to sleep. For a while, the world was silent, peaceful. Then he heard it. Skrrrr, skrrrr. Aaron shot upright, his heart pounding. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. He turned off the TV, the sudden silence amplifying the noise. It came from somewhere inside the apartment. Skrrrr. His breath quickened as he rose from the couch, gripping a heavy flashlight. The beam of light cut through the darkness, sweeping over the furniture and walls. Everything was still. Nothing was out of place. He moved cautiously through the apartment, his grip on the flashlight tightening with every step. The sound was louder now, coming from the hallway outside his door. Aaron hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorknob. His mind raced with images of SCP-173, its grotesque face and jagged body. But it was impossible. The Foundation had said it was contained, gone, hadn't they? Summoning every ounce of courage, Aaron unlocked the door and flung it open. The hallway was empty, illuminated only by the flickering light of a single bulb. He stepped out, his bare feet cold against the floor, and looked around. Skrrrr, skrrrr. The sound echoed from the far end of the hallway, where a fire exit door stood ajar, swinging slightly in the draft. Aaron approached slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. The closer he got, the more certain he became that he wasn't alone. He reached the door and pushed it open, stepping out into the stairwell. The sound stopped. The silence was deafening. For a moment, he thought it might be over, that his mind had been playing tricks on him. But then, as he turned to head back to his apartment, he saw it. At the bottom of the stairs, barely visible in the dim light, stood SCP-173. Aaron froze. His breath caught in his throat, and his grip on the flashlight faltered. The thing was motionless, hunched as if ready to spring. Its painted eyes seemed to lock onto his, mocking him with their crude simplicity. He didn't blink. He couldn't. Step by step, he backed away, never taking his eyes off the figure. His pulse thundered in his ears, drowning out every other sound. Not again, he muttered, his voice trembling. Not here. He reached the top of the stairs and slammed the door shut, locking it behind him. But the sound of scraping continued, louder now, as if the thing was dragging itself closer. He bolted back to his apartment and locked that door too, his hands shaking. His phone buzzed again, a new message from Lily. Lily, it's back. I saw it. Aaron, what do we do? Aaron didn't respond. He couldn't. He was staring at his living room window, where something moved in the reflection, a shadow that didn't match his own. The next morning, Aaron woke to find a plain, unmarked envelope slipped under his door. Inside was a single sheet of paper, bearing the Foundation's insignia and a brief message. To survivors of SCP-173, exposure. Continued psychological effects are expected. Report any anomalous activity immediately. Failure to comply may result in termination of privileges and relocation to a containment facility for your safety and the safety of others. Trust the Foundation. We are always watching. Aaron crumpled the letter, his hands trembling. They knew. They'd known all along that SCP-173 wasn't truly gone, that it couldn't be. He felt a bitter laugh rising in his throat, but it died as another sound reached his ears. Skrrr. It was coming from the bathroom this time. Aaron stared at the closed bathroom door, the faint noise growing louder. He backed away, grabbing his keys and rushing out of the apartment without looking back. As he fled into the rain-soaked streets, the sound followed him, faint but persistent. Skrrr. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Let's dive deeper into the mysteries surrounding our favorite neck-snapping sculpture. Behind those unblinking eyes and concrete facade, SCP-173 harbors secrets that even the Foundation's best minds are still trying to understand. One of the most compelling theories about SCP-173 comes from the tale Anniversary. According to this story, the statue was created by an invisible artist, likely from the Are We Cool Yet collective, who revealed that 173 is their favorite creation because it kills those who don't give it attention. This theory gains more weight when we look at another tale, the Sculpture, where Dr. Bright notes that 173 specifically wants actual people to clean its containment unit. It's like a deadly toddler throwing a tantrum when ignored in a particularly nightmare-inducing alternate timeline called the Revised Entry. 173 showed an ability to reproduce asexually using the mysterious substances it produces. This situation got so out of hand that the Foundation had to nuke both North and South America, and then bomb Wales for good measure, to eliminate roughly 150 copies of 173. Talk about a family reunion gone wrong. Psychological impact. The statue's effect on other SCPs is particularly telling. When the nearly indestructible SCP-682 encountered 173, it grew multiple eyes just to maintain constant visual contact. When a monster that terrifies monsters is scared of something, you know you've got a serious problem. Even more chilling is SCP-187's reaction. This girl, who can see the future of anything she looks at and is used to witnessing death and catastrophe, screamed continuously before falling into a catatonic state after seeing 173. Whatever fate she witnessed was apparently too horrific for even a seasoned future seer to handle. Mysterious nature. When photographed with SCP-978, a camera that shows the subject's greatest desire, 173's image didn't change. This suggests either that it has no desires at all, or it's already doing exactly what it wants to do. Neither option is particularly comforting. The scraping sounds it makes when unobserved, combined with its need for regular cleaning of mysterious substances, suggests some form of activity or metabolism that we don't understand. As the first SCP ever created, June 22, 2007, by user Moto42SS Walrus, 173 set the template for the entire SCP universe. It was originally posted on 4chan's X board as an attempt to subvert typical creepypasta tropes, focusing on clinical documentation rather than jump scares. Multiverse variations. In SCP-5555, it's revealed that in a previous universe, 173 was actually a D-class personnel before becoming the deadly statue we know today. This suggests its current form might not be its original or only manifestation. In the utopian universe of SCP-6001, 173 becomes a celebrated piece of performance art, changing form at midnight while crowds gather to watch. It's fascinating how different containment approaches can lead to such wildly different outcomes. The most compelling theory. Perhaps the most intriguing interpretation combines the attention-seeking and psychological aspects. If 173 truly craves attention, its method of killing becomes particularly meaningful. It only attacks when people look away, forcing its victims to either maintain constant vigilance or face death. It's like a twisted game of notice me or else, played by an entity that can only exist in the moments between our observations. What makes SCP-1 7-3 truly remarkable is how it plays on fundamental human limitations. We must blink, we must look away eventually. It's not just a monster that kills you. It's a monster that kills you. Because you cannot physically maintain the one action that would keep you safe. This psychological torture, combined with its mysterious origins and behaviors, makes it one of the most fascinating entries in the entire SCP catalog. Remember, in the world of SCP-173, Darwin would have to revise survival of the fittest to survival of the least likely to blink. Sleep tight.